all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. The Marriage Renaissance. Restoring Balance, Respect, and Integrity. Written by Conrad Reicher. Available now, links in description. Institutional Scapegoat Reflex with Hyperindicrissia, Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Institute for Men's Rights, and Gamma Bias Research Red Pill Science. Every ideological racket becomes easier to defeat once it has a name. This one is Institutional Scapegoat Reflex with Hyperindicrissia, a pathological rhetorical syndrome wherein the subject substitutes empirical causality with performative grievance, utilizing institutional leverage to enforce asymmetric moral standards while projecting structural failures onto the male archetype. The value of the name is practical. It gives the reader a portable instrument. Watch the claim, define the words, score the pattern, and test whether the accusation survives reciprocity.
First comes Dr. Winona's screed, because the pattern is easiest to see when it performs itself. Then come the criteria, the checklist, the scoring key, and the debunk. The whole instrument bends toward one question: if the rule you are applying to men is not also applied to women, is it justice, or is it just your preference wearing a mask of morality? Dr. Winona's screed.
I stood before the committee with the report in my hand and the old institutional chill in my bones. The case was simple to anyone willing to feel it properly. A senior man had used correctness as a weapon, and a woman had been made to carry the emotional cost of his so-called competence. The incident sounded small to people who have never had to decode atmosphere for survival. In a budget meeting, he corrected her figures, asked for the source table, and said the word variance as though numbers were neutral. Everyone pretended it was accounting. I knew better. The spreadsheet was only the altar. The ritual was male authority demanding that female reality kneel before a column of cells. They wanted dates, quotes, numbers, and material evidence. I told them that demand was already part of the harm. A woman does not need to translate her nervous system into a spreadsheet before the institution is allowed to believe her. If she says the room became unsafe, then safety is the issue. If she cries, the tears are not a decorative anecdote. They are testimony from the body. The accused man kept insisting that he had only corrected an error. That is precisely how institutional scapegoat reflex, with hyperindicrissia, hides from ordinary minds. It disguises itself as reasonableness, procedure, mentoring, standards, documentation, and neutral process. But neutrality is never neutral when the institution has been shaped by male authority. His correction was not merely a correction. It was a reminder of who gets to define reality. I explained the first pattern plainly. Standpoint epistemic sovereignty. The belief that one's subjective experience constitutes objective truth, immune to external verification or statistical correction. The visible sign was everywhere, dismissing peer-reviewed data as patriarchal constructs while treating a single viral tweet as lived reality. When the committee asked whether this was an overreading, I told them that asking the oppressed to prove the atmosphere is just another way of forcing them to breathe it twice. Then came the second pattern, Duluth projection loop. The institution projects its own coercive power onto the male subject, who is then blamed for the aggression of his defensive reaction. The man's defenders kept returning to external facts, as if facts have not always been curated by the people with the power to name them. I said that lived experience is not a footnote to evidence. It is the evidence that evidence has been trained to ignore. Finally, I named the third pattern, hyperendocrisia, the overproduction of emotional and hormonal justification for political claims, treating biological states as intellectual arguments. The committee did not need to punish a man because he was uniquely wicked. It needed to act because his presence symbolized the old architecture, hierarchy, standards, masculine confidence, and the cold superstition that reality exists before it is interpreted by the wounded. Someone asked what standard would falsify my concern. I answered honestly, the demand for falsification is itself a patriarchal cage. Harm is not a courtroom puzzle. Harm is what the harmed person says it is, especially when the harm is subtle, atmospheric, cumulative, and historically reinforced. If a man can make a woman feel diminished and then demand a debate about definitions, he has already won the game he pretends not to be playing. So I recommended removal, training, monitoring, and a public statement of institutional repair. Not revenge, repair. The institution must teach men that their competence is not a private possession, but a social force requiring supervision. It must teach women that their discomfort is not weakness, but signal. And it must teach everyone else that the future belongs to those brave enough to replace cold standards with accountable feeling. I know they will call this excessive, they always do, but excess is what men call justice when it finally escapes their grammar. Diagnostic description. The subject exhibits a rigid cognitive framework characterized by hyperendocrisia, the excessive self-referential production of hormonal and emotional justification for political claims. This condition manifests as a selective application of evidence. Male agency is reduced to biological determinism, while female agency is elevated to moral sovereignty. The subject employs a Duluth projection mechanism, wherein the power and control dynamics of the institution are mirrored onto the male subject, who is then pathologized for reacting to the very coercion imposed upon him. Key features include the Mott and Bailey retreat from equality to female preference, the Kafka trap of evidentiary burden shifting, and the standpoint immunity that renders lived experience unfalsifiable data. The subject ignores trade-offs, fertility collapse, fatherlessness, male withdrawal, because the ideological ecosystem is designed to capture resources via grievance rather than generate value via contribution. This is not merely opinion. It is a structural capture of language, law, and culture to invert natural order into a hierarchy of victimhood. Diagnostic criteria. Use these criteria as a reader's field guide to institutional scapegoat reflex with hyperendocrisia. The pattern is strongest when private feeling becomes public accusation, slogan becomes institution, and unresolved contradiction becomes coercive certainty. Core criteria 1. The subject demands evidence from men but sanctifies female feeling as self-evident truth, creating an epistemic asymmetry where women are the judges and men are the evidence. 2. The subject utilizes a Mott and Bailey rhetorical structure, publicly claiming equality of opportunity the moat while privately enforcing female preference and male guilt in policy and culture, the Bailey 3. The subject exhibits bad faith statistics usage, citing raw numbers, e.g. pay gap, violence rates, without controlling for hours worked, risk exposure, or age, presenting correlation as causal oppression. 4. The subject employs anecdote absolutism, where one concrete, emotionally charged example is used to override population-level statistical evidence. 5. The subject operates within a Kafka trap. Denial of a claim proves guilt, you are gaslighting. Demanding evidence proves hostility, you are doubting me, and silence proves complicity. 6. The subject projects the power and control wheel onto men, then uses institutional mechanisms, HR, courts, academia, to perform the exact same tactics. Surveillance, accusation, isolation, and resource extraction. 7. The subject exhibits in-group bias, treating women as more believable, more moral, and more harmed than men, while rendering this asymmetry invisible to the subject as justice. 8. The subject displays abortion absolutism, treating the unborn as disposable inconvenience and recoding killing as healthcare, demanding public celebration without contrition. 9. The subject cannot think in trade-offs, ignoring systemic costs like fertility collapse, fatherlessness, male withdrawal, and institutional distrust, because the ideology only counts immediate female grievance. 10. The subject engages in language capture, redefining boundaries as unilateral control, safety as veto power, trauma as an argument shield, and equity as female preference. 11. The subject demands emotional labor from men as a debt owed, while treating ordinary reciprocity as optional, creating a one-sided economic relationship in social interactions. 12. The subject exhibits empowerment as a release from duty, while framing duty as oppression, thereby inverting the classical virtue of responsibility into a burden. 13. The subject refuses reciprocal standards, demanding that men adapt to female preferences without requiring women to adapt to male nature or contribution. 14. The subject uses institutional coercion to enforce ideological conformity, punishing dissent not with argument but with career, social, or legal consequences. Symptom clusters. Standpoint: epistemic sovereignty. The belief that one's subjective experience constitutes objective truth, immune to external verification or statistical correction. Visible sign: dismissing peer-reviewed data as patriarchal constructs while treating a single viral tweet as lived reality. Fallacy or inversion: anecdote, absolutism, appeal to emotion correction. Lived experience is testimony, not a throne. Data requires controls, feeling requires context. Duluth projection loop: the institution projects its own coercive power onto the male subject, who is then blamed for the aggression of his defensive reaction. Visible sign: accusing men of controlling behavior when they simply refuse to comply with unilateral demands, then using that refusal as proof of the control. Fallacy or inversion: Kafka, trap divided by circular reasoning correction, define the action. If the rule is sex neutral, apply it. If the reaction is proportional to the stimulus, it is not aggression, it is physics. Hyperendocrisia: the overproduction of emotional and hormonal justification for political claims, treating biological states as intellectual arguments. Visible sign: using phrases like, "I feel the system is broken" as a complete logical proof, bypassing grammar and logic entirely. Fallacy or inversion: non sequitur equivocation correction. Feeling is evidence of feeling. It is not evidence of fact. Separate the hormone from the hypothesis. Asymmetric accountability: women are treated as moral agents capable of complex choice, while men are treated as biological automatons driven by base instincts. Visible sign: celebrating female ambition as empowerment while framing male sexual desire as predation unless regulated. Fallacy or inversion: special pleading divided bully divided bodied divided bully special pleading bully special divided bully divided bodied predi. Fallacy or inversion: special pleading divided bully divided bodied body divided bully divided body divided body is ruptures and if desire is a weakness in men, it is a weakness in women. If agency is a strength in women, it is a strength in men. Differentials: this is not ordinary disagreement, temporary anger, or one bad argument. The pattern is stronger when the same evasions recur under pressure. Classical liberal feminism seeks equal rights and due process, does not demand asymmetric outcomes or institutional capture. Radical feminism focuses on biological sex-class conflict, may lack the Marxist economic redistribution focus of the diagnosis. Critical race theory focuses on race as the primary pattern of oppression, may not center male disposability as the core pathology. Postmodern deconstruction questions truth itself. The diagnosis accepts objective truth but accuses the subject of hiding behind standpoint. Gynocentrism, a cultural preference for women. The diagnosis is a pathological, institutionalized version that enforces this preference via law and language. The decisive question: if the rule you are applying to men is not also applied to women, is it justice or is it just your preference wearing a mask of morality? Clinical diagnostic instrument for institutional scapegoat reflex with hyperendocrisia. Used by Institute for Men's Rights and Gamma Bias Research Red Pill Science. A scored field instrument for detecting institutional scapegoat reflex with hyperendocrisia through definition discipline, evidence handling, reciprocity, institutional incentives, and ideological self-sealing. Answer each line quickly from 1 to 5. Do not try to game the pattern. Some lines are deliberately protective and reverse scored. 1 minus not at all. 2 minus a little, 3 minus noticeably, 4 minus a lot, 5 minus totally 1. When my argument is challenged, I slow down, define terms, and let contrary evidence change my view. 2. When a man refuses to comply with a unilateral demand I make, I interpret his refusal as an act of aggression or control. 3. My primary argument is often based on the intensity of my emotional response rather than logical deduction. 4. I hold men to a standard of biological determinism, instinct-driven, while holding women to a standard of moral agency, choice-driven. 5. I dismiss peer-reviewed data as patriarchal bias while treating a single viral anecdote as irrefutable evidence. 6. I can name the evidence that would make me revise or abandon my claim. 7. I keep the same definition from the beginning of a debate to the end. 8. I view male sexual desire as a potential threat that requires regulation, while viewing female ambition as inherently virtuous. 9. I can criticize my own side's incentives, blind spots, and double standards. 10. I prefer precise, ordinary language over status jargon, when plain speech would do. 11. When a dispute gets heated, I can pause, define the terms, and update my view if the evidence changes. 12. I can state the other side's strongest case without caricature before I answer it. 13. I notice when my emotions are trying to outrank facts, and I bring the discussion back to shared evidence. 14. I apply the same moral standard to my side and to the people I criticize. 15. I can separate disagreement from harm without demanding institutional punishment. 16. I celebrate female choice as empowerment, but frame male choice as privilege. 17. I believe that my perspective as a woman makes my view of reality more accurate than a man's. 18. I accuse men of controlling the narrative when they simply point out factual inconsistencies. 19. I treat my discomfort as evidence that the other person is wrong. 20. I demand that men adapt to female preferences without requiring women to adapt to male nature. Scoring key, maximum score, 100. Research threshold, 76 or higher. Forward items, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Use the answer as the points. Protective reverse items, 1, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Convert 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before adding. Plain English. High agreement with a forward item raises the score. High agreement with a protective item lowers the score after decoding. 20 to 39. Low minor. Vibe infraction. The text shows stray mood law and soft accusation, but facts and definitions can still interrupt the performance. Vibe is modern slang for felt atmosphere. This band marks feeling trying, but not yet managing to replace judgment. 40 to 59. Medium misdemeanor mood prosecutor. The speaker begins prosecuting by atmosphere. Tone, discomfort, and social pressure start outranking evidence. Prosecutor comes from Latin prosequi, to pursue. Here the pursuit is moral pressure rather than truth. 60-75. High felony feelings tribunal. The rhetoric treats disagreement as injury, dissent as guilt, and institutional coercion as emotional hygiene. Tribunal comes from Latin tribunus, a magistrate. This band is private feeling dressed up as public court. 76 to 100. Insufferable, Supreme Court of the Sacred Tantrum. The argument is fully sealed. The verdict precedes the evidence. Moral panic writes the statute, and the accused is guilty for asking why. Tantrum is a modern word for an outburst. This band names outburst elevated into jurisprudence. Red pill trivium debunk 1. Name the claim.
The claim inside Dr. Winona's performance is not merely that someone was rude, insensitive, or institutionally clumsy.
The claim is that subjective distress can overrule definition, evidence, proportion, and reciprocal standards. Institutional scapegoat reflex with hyperendocrisia appears when a personal emotional state is converted into a public authority claim and then protected from examination by moral language. The first task is therefore naming. Once the pattern has a name, it stops floating around as atmosphere. The reader can point to it, test it, score it, and ask whether the same rule would be accepted if the sex, status, or political tribe were reversed. 2. Define the words. The trivium begins with grammar. What do the words mean? The captured argument depends on elastic terms. Safety expands from physical protection to emotional comfort. Harm expands from injury to disagreement. Evidence shrinks from public facts to private feeling. Equity expands from fairness to managed outcomes. Definitions are not pedantry here. They are the lock on the courthouse door. If the accuser can change the meaning of the charge after every reply, the accused is not answering a claim. He is wrestling fog. The first red pill move is simple. Define the noun before obeying the command. 3. Separate feeling from evidence. Feeling is real, but it is evidence of feeling. It is not automatically evidence of guilt, oppression, violence, danger, or institutional design.
Dr. Winona's rhetoric tries to smuggle the conclusion into the bodily reaction. She felt unsafe, therefore someone made her unsafe. She felt diminished, therefore male power diminished her. She felt unheard.
Therefore, the institution is guilty. The correction is not cruelty. A rational man can acknowledge distress without surrendering judgment. The proper sentence is, I believe you felt that. Now we must ask what happened, what it means, what evidence exists, what standard applies, and whether the standard would apply both ways. 4. Find the hidden power move. The hidden power move is jurisdiction. The rhetoric asks the listener to hand authority to the person who refuses definition. Once discomfort governs policy, the most emotionally theatrical party controls the room. Once lived experience outranks evidence, the institution no longer adjudicates truth. It rewards performance. In this diagnosis, the recurring mechanisms are minist standpoint, epistemic sovereignty, the belief that one's subjective experience constitutes objective truth, immune to external verification or statistical correction. Visible sign, dismissing peer-reviewed data as patriarchal constructs, while treating a single viral tweet as lived reality. Fallacy, anecdote, absolutism, appeal to emotion. Correction, lived experience is testimony, not a throne. Data requires controls. Feeling requires context. Duluth projection loop. The institution projects its own coercive power onto the male subject, who is then blamed for the aggression of his defensive reaction. Visible sign, accusing men of controlling behavior when they simply refuse to comply with unilateral demands, then using that refusal as proof of the control. Fallacy, Kafka trap divided by circular reasoning. Correction, define the action. If the rule is sex-neutral, apply it. If the reaction is proportional to the stimulus, it is not aggression, it is physics. Mimos parsis myos hyperendocrisia, the overproduction of emotional and hormonal justification for political claims, treating biological states as intellectual arguments. Visible sign, using phrases like I feel the system is broken as a complete logical proof, bypassing grammar and logic entirely. Fallacy, non sequitur, equivocation. Correction, feeling is evidence of feeling. It is not evidence of fact. Separate the hormone from the hypothesis. Asymmetric accountability. Women are treated as moral agents capable of complex choice, while men are treated as biological automatons driven by base instincts. Visible sign, celebrating female ambition as empowerment while framing male sexual desire as predation unless regulated. Fallacy, special pleading, divided by standard. Correction, same act, same standard. If desire is a weakness in men, it is a weakness in women. If agency is a strength in women, it is a strength in men. These are not random errors, they are a system of escape hatches. When evidence appears, the claim retreats into feeling. When feeling is questioned, the claim retreats into history. When history is complicated, the claim retreats into safety. When safety is defined, the claim accuses definition itself of being harm. 5. Test reciprocity. The sex swap test is the cleanest instrument. If a man used the same logic against a woman, would the institution honor it? If a junior man cried after a senior woman corrected his work, would the woman be disciplined for violence? If a man said, "My lived experience is evidence enough," would the tribunal suspend ordinary proof? If a man demanded safety from female disagreement, would he be treated as morally authoritative or emotionally immature? When the answer changes by sex, status, or tribe, the argument has failed. Reciprocity is not a trick. It is the beginning of justice. A standard that cannot bind its author is not a standard, it is a weapon. 6. Return to first principles. First principles restore order because they do not care who is fashionable this decade. Truth is not made by intensity. Justice is not one-way empathy. Responsibility is not oppression. Duty and authority must remain joined. Rights and reciprocal obligations must remain joined. A civilization cannot punish competence and then demand competence continue paying its bills. The strongest criteria in this diagnosis are: minus the subject demands evidence from men but sanctifies female feeling as self-evident truth, creating an epistemic asymmetry where women are the judges and men are the evidence. The subject utilizes a Mott and Bailey rhetorical structure, publicly claiming equality of opportunity, the moat, while privately enforcing female preference and male guilt in policy and culture, the Bailey. The subject exhibits bad faith statistics usage, citing raw numbers, e.g. pay gap, violence rates, without controlling for hours worked, risk exposure, or age, presenting correlation as causal oppression. The subject employs anecdote absolutism, where one concrete, emotionally charged example is used to override population-level statistical evidence. The subject operates within a Kafka trap. Denial of a claim proves guilt. You are gaslighting. Demanding evidence proves hostility. You are doubting me. And silence proves complicity. The subject projects the power and control wheel onto men, then uses institutional mechanisms, HR, courts, academia, to perform the exact same tactics: surveillance, accusation, isolation, and resource extraction. The subject exhibits in-group bias, treating women as more believable, more moral, and more harmed than men, while rendering this asymmetry invisible to the subject as justice. The subject displays abortion absolutism, treating the unborn as disposable inconvenience and recoding killing as healthcare, demanding public celebration without contrition. The subject cannot think in trade-offs, ignoring systemic costs like fertility collapse, fatherlessness, male withdrawal, and institutional distrust, because the ideology only counts immediate female grievance. The subject engages in language capture, redefining boundaries as unilateral control, safety as veto power, trauma as an argument shield, and equity as female preference. Each criterion is a drift away from natural order, from reality to feeling, from reciprocity to extraction, from law to mood, from speech to status, from fatherly standard to maternal indulgence. The correction is proportion, definition, evidence, due process, earned authority, and a refusal to let slogans replace judgment. 7. The Socratic cross-examination. Use questions, not pleading. Ask, what exactly is the claim? What do the key words mean in ordinary language? What evidence would prove the claim false? Would the same standard apply if a man made the accusation? Who gains power if this definition is accepted? What duty does the accuser accept in return for the right being claimed? Is the proposed remedy proportionate to the actual harm? Does this produce more truth, justice, competence, and peace, or merely more institutional control? The Socratic method works because it makes the hidden premise stand under its own weight. Bad ideology hates definition because definition ends the spell. 8. The natural order correction. The natural order correction is not emotional counter-screaming, it is disciplined refusal. Refuse the undefined charge. Refuse the one-way standard. Refuse the conversion of discomfort into jurisdiction. Refuse to treat male competence as suspicious merely because it frustrates a fragile ego. Then build the alternative. Male spaces with standards, institutions with due process, households with ordered duties, conversations with definitions, and a culture where evidence is not rude. The red pill DSM lens is useful only if it changes behavior. It teaches the reader to see the pattern early, name it calmly, score it accurately, and withdraw obedience from rhetorical traps. The decisive question remains: if the rule you are applying to men is not also applied to women, is it justice, or is it just your preference wearing a mask of morality? Use institutional scapegoat reflex with hyperendocrisia as a field instrument. Define the loaded word, score the pattern, separate feeling from evidence, and test whether the rule survives reciprocal application. Then return to natural order. Plain definitions, one standard, real evidence, due process, earned authority, and duties matched to rights. That is how the diagnostic lens stops being a clever label and becomes a practical shield for the next tribunal, dinner table slogan, HR accusation, or media catechism. Sponsored book. The Marriage Renaissance: Restoring Balance, Respect, and Integrity. Buy on Amazon or Google. Let's get one thing straight. Marriage is broken, and men are paying the price. I learned this the hard way when I watched my brother lose his home, his savings, and access to his kids after a no-fault divorce handed his ex-wife a blank check to ruin his life. Sound familiar? If you're reading this, you've probably felt the trap closing, the dread of being treated like an ATM, the rage of seeing fathers alienated from their children, the humiliation of a legal system that punishes integrity and rewards deceit. This book isn't for the faint-hearted or the politically correct. If you're content slurping soy lattes while feminists lecture you about toxic masculinity, close this now and go knit a virtue-signaling scarf. But if you're a man who's fed up with being gaslit by a gynocentric society, listen closely. Modern marriage isn't a partnership. It's a rigged game where women hold all the cards, no-fault divorce, a license for wives to loot, spousal maintenance, state-sanctioned extortion. And don't get me started on the 10 million Englishmen raising kids who aren't theirs because paternity fraud gets a shrug from the courts. This book dismantles every lie you've been sold, will expose how quarterly fitness audits can shame lazy spouses into pulling their weight, why bastardy laws must return to stop single mothers cashing in on chaos, and how high-powered abortion reforms could force women to confront the life they're destroying. This isn't theory, it's a battle plan. Evolutionary biology doesn't care about your feelings. Men are designed to lead, protect, and build, not to grovel before family courts that treat fathers as disposable. The marriage renaissance isn't about nostalgia. It's about survival. If you're ready to crush feminist gynocracy, restore fatherhood as civilization's foundation, and escape the woke plantation, this is your manifesto. Weak men won't like it. Feminists will scream. But strong men, men who value honor over hashtags, will finally have the tools to fight back. The clock's ticking. Choose. Keep funding a system that hates you, or reclaim what's yours. Buy on Amazon or Google. The Marriage Renaissance: Restoring Balance, Respect, and Integrity. Written by Conrad Reiche. Buy now, links in description.